A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Right now, there is a new initiative that may supercharge organisations that have been challenged with their fundraising efforts. Hands up anyone working in an organisation that relies on fundraising. Well, Christian Ministry Advancement, CMA, is running events in 5 cities until the 1st of March, launching the CMA Fundraising Network, and it is free to join. Gary Williams is National Director of CMA, Christian Ministry Advancement. Gary, a special welcome back to 2020.
Thank you, Neil. It's great to be with you.
Gary, fundraising, it's an ongoing challenge, and no doubt with some of the cost of living increases and maybe there's less money around. How do you see things?
Look, we have about 1,800 members around the country, and when we talk to our members and, if we are saying, look, if we could wave a magic wand and fix some of your challenges, what would they be? In order, they would be, please fix my board challenges. Then they would be, please fix my HR workplace challenges. And then it would be, please help us fix some revenue generation, fundraising challenges. How do we get more resources so that we can expand the ministry that God's called us to? So, for many people, I won't say it's the biggest issue, but it always comes up in the top 3 when we're talking to people, the things that they find challenging. And let's not start talking about recruiting. Recruiting for fundraisers is just a really challenging thing too.
Well, I guess you've got mature, well-developed, very good fundraisers, and you've got those who are just coming into a fundraising role. So the thought of rubbing shoulders or networking with other people doing similar things to you can only be good.
Yeah, look, and the breadth is enormous. I mean, in the events we've had already, we've had groups for whom a major gift is only something over $65,000. Some people scratch their heads and think, wow, so what, a $60,000 gift doesn't make it into your major gift. And we have people from small organisations for whom a $500 gift is something they celebrate for days. So there's an enormous range in the Christian sector, just as there's an enormous range of organisations.
Well, Gary, this is a new dimension that's being added to CMA. What's the purpose here of starting this new network?
Look, the purpose is to try and provide a space for Christian fundraisers to get together with other Christians, to learn from each other, and to dig into some of the things that are different about ministry fundraising. I mean, most organisations, if they're of a substantial size, they'll have a membership of the Fundraising Institute of Australia, they'll go to their conferences. There's no shortage of products and services and providers in the not-for-profit fundraising space, but a lot of that is a little disconnected from what it's like in church world, in ministry world. Sure, some of the pragmatic realities are still the same, but there's a distinct difference in Christian fundraising, and we want to provide an opportunity, for Christian fundraisers to look into some of those differences, B, for them to get to know each other and pray with each other and brainstorm with each other, and then C, for them to just grow in professional development, not so much in their fundraising skills, that's of course part of it, but also in the understanding of the ministry of fundraising and how they can be a blessing to the people that they are talking to about generosity and stewardship and partnership in ministry.
Knowing something of your history too, Gary, there's complexity whenever you're getting involved in any sort of pursuit like fundraising, and integrity is an important element of that. When you're connecting with CMA, you've got access to resources that help you do the job and do it well?
Look, we try and provide those kinds of things. One of the things that we have is the CMA Standards Council, which is a whole division of CMA, which accredits Christian organisations against standards of good governance, accountability, transparency. And there's a real link between generosity and accountability. And so, we really try and help organisations bridge that accountability gap. We don't want Christian organisations just dragging themselves up to the minimum standards that the regulators require in terms of good organisational behaviour. We want to encourage Christian organisations to say we're not being dragged kicking and screaming up to the minimum. We want to be at the forefront, voluntarily disclosing more than we need to disclose, voluntarily erring on the side of caution rather than adventurousness in terms of good organisational behaviour, and maybe undo a bit of the bad reputation that the church has unfortunately earned itself at times, by being imprudent in some of these areas. We think people ought to look at the Christian organisations and say, and think something good of God because of the way Christian organisations behave.
Is there something different about Christian organisations' fundraising? Because oftentimes the motivation is a kingdom principle. It's a way that the work of God can flourish through the church and ministries. Christian mission, a great commission in the sense there. How do you see what's so valuable? It's not just asking for money, is it? It's actually releasing something that will endeavour to get that kingdom orientation expanding.
Absolutely, and this, came up just this morning in one of our fundraising functions. The notion that we're not just asking people to help us meet our budget, no matter how well-intentioned and how good our mission is. That's still a rather transactional thing. We're looking at the relationship. A fundraiser is not just saying, can you please give us money from your pocket to help us meet our budget so that we can do good things. When we really reach into what it means as Christians to be talking to other generous Christians and asking them to be a partner with us in God's work, and also encouraging them to grow in their own spiritual life and spiritual generosity, we're trying to invest in the lives of the givers, and that may end up mean a gift goes somewhere else other than to us. It may mean we don't hit our budget target because the way that we have built into the life of someone else or encouraged someone else sends them in a different direction. That's probably a slightly exaggerated example, but the purpose is not merely to meet a revenue target. The purpose is to help people discover the joy of living generous Christian lives the way we're all encouraged to do. And as a byproduct of that, we find that money flows to the causes that God is calling us to.
So this is a new initiative. It is the CMA Fundraising Network, and I like your launch, a launch in 5 capital cities. A couple of those already happened, but some more coming through until the 1st of March. This is a great initiative, a tour underway right now, and you've got an amazing speaker, Dr. Gary Hogue from the US. He's a part of what's happening with the launch?
Yes, Gary's been a friend of ours for 10 years or so. Gary has been a fundraiser for Christian seminaries in his previous life, so he's an expert fundraiser. But he's a PhD, New Testament scholar. He's one of the thought leaders in the ministry of fundraising. He's written books. The Sower is one, just a fantastic book that is just a whole new slant on what it is to be Christian fundraising. Gary is now leading Global Trust Partners, building these accountability organisations and supporting them in literally dozens of countries. 5 years ago, there were 3 of these organisations. Now there are 17 in existence, 10 that are nearly there, and 15 more clamouring for help to get going. So Gary is around the world helping stimulate Christian generosity so that all of the organisations who pursue a gospel mission can be more effective and more accountable. Gary is visiting Australia. He offered to serve. How could we serve? And we thought it was a great opportunity. We'd been working towards the launch of the fundraising network in the first quarter of this year. And when we knew that Gary was available, we thought, let's make this coincide with Gary's visit so that we can just be face-to-face in 5 cities. And then we launched the network online as well, so that even people who can't get to these launch events can still be part of a community of Christian fundraisers that we think over the long term will encourage and bless a lot of people.
Well, Gary Hoag certainly is world class. In fact, I can remember him as one of the best guests on 2020 over the years, talking Christians and money. Hey, how does the future look, Gary? Things are changing. The years ahead, the fundraising challenge for churches, for not-for-profits. How do things look into the future?
Look, that's a challenging question to answer. I think the first thing to realise is this hasn't caught God by surprise, and God is big enough for all this. And despite the notion, of some people or some organisations that feel a bit of a competitive threat about fundraising, as though there's only so much money to go around and we've got to make sure that we get our share of the pie, God's resources are unlimited, and the resources that God makes available will be there for the work that God calls us to do. But we don't just solve this by going through the formulaic transactional processes. We need to be deeply in communion with God to see what that means for each organisation, for each of us. It takes a different shape for different organisations. And I think it's true, the world is becoming more challenging, it's becoming more hostile, or at least less friendly to the Christian causes. And so we need to adapt to that. Just some of the survey we sent among our accredited partners, 81% of them said that the increasing secularisation of Australia is requiring significant operational changes for them to be able to continue to operate effectively. It's getting complicated. It hasn't caught God by surprise. And He is our provider. Our salary, our employer, our investments, these aren't our providers. God is our provider, and He will be there for us, but we need to snuggle in.
Well, for a lot of listeners today, hearing what we're talking about, a CMA Fundraising Network, this might be a breath of fresh air, a way to rub shoulders with and participate in fundraising alongside a network of others who are pursuing the same thing. The CMA Fundraising Network is being launched right now with a 5 capital cities event and featuring Dr. Gary Hoag. 2 of those events are already past. There's 3 still to come. For listeners who want to jot down a detail or two, Sydney on the 27th of February, Perth on the 29th, and Adelaide on the 1st of March. You can get details about these at the CMA website, cma.net.au, cma.net.au. Gary Williams is National Director of CMA. That stands for Christian Ministry Advancement, cma.net.au. Gary, thanks so much for an update today on 2020.
You're welcome, Neil. It's exciting to talk about.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.